The Jalen Ramsey injury put a lot into perspective for me. There are a lot of volatile teams in the NFL entering 2023. There are a lot of teams that I have no idea if they're going to be a contender or if they're going to be a pretender. If they're going to live up to expectations or if they're going to fall flat on their faces. The Miami Dolphins, without a doubt, have to be the most volatile team in the NFL entering this season. This injury to Jalen Ramsey puts it all into perspective. The Miami Dolphins are not only the most fragile team in football, they have been the most fragile team in the NFL. And it's no different this year. Jalen Ramsey unexpectedly goes out. And we all kind of forget while we're making our preseason predictions, our division winners, the teams that are going to make the playoffs, ultimately we are at mercy to injuries at the end of the day. We don't know if Joe Burrow is going to get hurt in camp. That would change a lot when it comes to the AFC North. We don't know if a player like Jalen Ramsey is going to go down during training camp. No idea. But what we do know is history. What we can count on is history. And when you take a look at the Miami Dolphins, from their most important players to their depth players, they are the most fragile roster in the NFL when it comes to the teams that everyone's discussing as a contender. I think that's why it's so hard for so many people to actually categorize the Miami Dolphins. They made the playoffs last year and didn't even have their starting quarterback in that playoff game. How do you evaluate that? Not to mention they didn't even have their backup quarterback in that game. This has been a fragile team. And it begins with their quarterback, Tua. This team's a different team. Whether you love him as a quarterback or you don't like him so much, you cannot deny that there's a different product on the field when Tua is playing. And I believe a lot of that last year was due to the fact that when you watched Miami playing with Tua, and you watched Miami playing with any other quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, Skylar Thompson, it felt like they ran almost two different offenses. With Tua, they ran a lot more RPO stuff, and they were excellent at that offense. The quick game. Tua was also a lot more explosive, getting the ball down the field to his targets. But if Miami is going to be good, and if Miami in this division, the AFC East, in my opinion, the most stacked, littered with talent division in all of the NFL, not just the AFC. That is the best division in the NFL. That is the best conference in the NFL, the AFC. And the AFC East is the best of the AFC. If Tua only plays his traditional 13 games, and he misses 4 games this year, are the Dolphins good enough to survive in this division, in this conference? Are they good enough? Because I even find myself going back and forth with this team. At times, I feel like there's no reason to take a look at their depth chart and not suggest they aren't a top 4 team in this conference from a talent standpoint. Even from a coaching standpoint, You can make an argument that Mike McDaniel was awesome last year and adding Vic Fangio will only make them stronger on defense. But then you clue back in and say, well, what is their projection if their quarterback misses the games that he typically misses? Right? He has never played a full season. And he's basically missed 3, 4+ games every year of his career. So if that happens again, is Mike White good enough to win this team enough games to survive? Hopefully for Tua to come back to the playoffs. And as we saw last year, we don't even know if he would come back to the playoffs if he were to get injured. Now, I'm not hoping for him to get hurt. I'm just telling you the facts. He gets hurt. And let's be honest. The concerning part about Tua is that one more concussion and this guy might no longer have a career. That would not be a good look for the Miami Dolphins. But it's not just Tua. It's also arguably one of their other most valuable players, Teron Armstead. The reason they brought in Teron Armstead at left tackle was to protect the asset in Tua. But this is a guy that you signed who doesn't play a lot of games. The year before they signed him, he played half a season. He played 8 games. And Miami thought it was a great idea to sign Teron Armstead to a big contract. Now last year, he played more than 8. He played 13 once again. So again, you can look at Miami's roster and say, this is a playoff team. This is a team that we're going to see in January. But what if Tua again misses 4 or 5 games? What if Teron Armstead, now in his 30s, 31, 32 years old, at left tackle, we've seen these guys wear down and miss a lot of games. What if he misses another 4 games this year? What if he misses half the season like he did 2 seasons ago? How much worse is this offensive line? Because it's a lot worse. And then you factor in the rest of the offensive line. Connor Williams and Robert Hunt are consistently on the field, and I think you can count on those players. Austin Jackson, he has not been a good player, but he came into the NFL with medical issues. Last year, he only played 2 games. Isaiah Wynn, one of the players that I know very well, they signed to be quality depth for Jackson, for Armstead, for the offensive line in general, having played left and right tackle throughout his career so far in New England. Former first-round pick, has never actually played a full season in the NFL. In fact, he has averaged about 8 to 10 games a year, most years in the NFL. And that was a huge issue for him in New England. They couldn't count on him. He was not a reliable player. And he's coming off probably his worst season of his career. So there's 2 more offensive linemen that would at least factor in to the depth of this offensive line. So your quarterback, who gets injured a lot, has protectors who get injured a lot. And if they're injured, Tua's more likely to see more hits, and Tua's more likely to get injured. Right? Then we move on to the defense because it doesn't stop anytime soon. In terms of the edge rushers, Jalen Phillips is a player that I think could have a breakout season. I think he's extremely promising, and I loved him coming out of the U. He's my favorite pass rusher that year in the draft, I think by far, and I felt like he was a top 10 pick. The only reason he wasn't was, you guessed it, because of the injury profile that he had coming out of college. If that creeps up again, that would be a significant loss. Now, during his NFL career, he has played. So that's good. Hopefully that continues. Now, a player that hasn't always been playing has been Bradley Chubb, a pass rusher that the Miami Dolphins felt like they should acquire for a first-round pick last year. Talk about a steal of a trade by the Denver Broncos, in my opinion. But Bradley Chubb, just in general, is a bit of an overrated player. But then you combine the fact that he basically misses every second season of his career. He's had a couple good seasons in his career, and then it feels like it follows up with an injury-riddled miss of the season. Just completely missing the rest of the season. Every second season, Bradley Chubb is not available for his team. And you placed not only a contract, but a first-round pick into that asset. At linebacker, people were wondering why David Long was such a cheap contract in free agency. It's because Mike Vrabel, one of the most respected coaches in all of football, quite literally called him soft. Because he's never played a full season in his career. He played 10 games in 2021, 12 games in 2022. These things are beginning to add up for me. Like, we basically know, don't even count the guys that are usually healthy. Because in the sport of the NFL, you never know who's going to get injured. And that's the exact point here. But if you can have a better idea of who's going to get injured based on the history of their injuries, and based on a track record of consistency suggesting they don't stay healthy and they don't stay on the field, and you already have a lot of players that get hurt on your team, and you're in a physical division, in a competitive conference where every game and every win matters, and then maybe a player might pop up and miss a game or two at other spots that you might have not expected, and you're acquiring players like Bradley Chubb and David Long and Teron Armstead, all guys with ridiculously injured histories. You've already had a scare in Jalen Ramsey. How may that affect now Xavier Howard? I think a big reason they went out and got Jalen Ramsey because they lacked confidence in Howard as their number one after a terrible season last year. He's also getting into his 30s now. Will he continue to regress? You're having to now replace a Jalen Ramsey early in the year with a rookie Cam Smith. Brandon Jones, one of your safeties, doesn't play very much. Last year, 7 games. He's a starting safety on your defense. So you just keep going down the list. You go to your running backs, which is always a position of injured players, but none more injured than the 49er castaways. There's a reason Raheem Mostert is no longer a 49er. It has a lot to do with his injury history. He played a lot last year, but before that, he's never played a full season in his career dating back to 2015, and he still hasn't actually. That's kind of what happens when you take a sprinter and make him a running back. Jeff Wilson, a player that's played 0 full seasons in his career since 2018. He did play, again, a lot last year, but will that hold up? Now, you have drafted a rookie running back to hopefully provide some depth, and I think that was smart, because as we've seen with Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert, I don't think you can really rely on either to consistently be there throughout a full season. I just gotta wonder, again, if a team like Miami, with as much talent as they have, as promising as their coaching is, if everything clicks, I feel like they can be a very good team. But at the same time, I feel like they're extremely fragile. Like, in a way that a lot of teams are simply not. Like, are we really ever worried that a quarterback is going to take one hit and be out for the rest of his career? Are we worried that a left tackle is just constantly going to be missing half a season? That one of your best pass rushers misses every second season? I mean, it's kind of crazy what Miami has built with this roster. There's a lot of names. It is kind of loaded, but there's sort of a reason for that because a lot of these guys have been extremely unreliable. And I just wonder if Miami in this division will be too unreliable for them to win enough games to make the playoffs and be a dangerous threat the way that a lot of people think they can be in 2023, including myself. Like, I have included them in the playoff race so far. But if they don't make it, it very well could be because they are the most fragile team in the NFL. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Just a quick rant about my thoughts sparked by the Jalen Ramsey injury. Miami better stay healthy, or this could turn into a disaster in 2023. Gronk, spike the like button, subscribe for more. We'll see you soon. Peace.